Hello, buddy. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Thursday, May 29th, 2025. So we're almost through May here. Two more, well, I guess technically 3 more days because we did have Saturday, but of course we normally don't broadcast on Saturday. So we're almost out of May, so almost 5 months through the year. Hopefully everybody's had a good week this week. Starting off with the extended holiday, of course, here in the States. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in. So before we get started, friendly reminder, of course, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, with that, as I said, we're just waiting around for people to show up. Let me see if I can go around one more time. Yeah, let's see if we can. La 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 la. Yeah, so saw a Betty Boop cartoon earlier today. Called the New Deal Show, and alternately called the New Deal for Pets, kind of sparking a lot, some interesting inventions for pets and all that. So I've already through now October of 1937 in terms of animation watching. So watching, of course, the Sawmill Mystery earlier as well. The last of Fanny Zilch, um, Fanny Zilch episodes, as it were. Let's see. All right, so now we're coming up on 3 minutes. So we're at 3 minutes now. So I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. So tonight I got one article I'm going to go over from Founding into Comics. That being, talking about, I guess, the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, as it were. The Spectacular Spider-Man lead says Disney actively worked against the series after buying Marvel. They made it hard to get an audience. So we'll look at that. Plus, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap-up. Look back to last night's Dynamite. Look ahead to tonight's TNA Impact and Ring of Honor shows. Of course, gets all caught up on all the wrestling action, and also take a look back at time, in this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started, as we're now just past the 4 minute mark. So I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, let me just one more time to see if I can find some more. Let's see. All right, so there we go. All right. Alrighty then. So why don't we go ahead and get started then, as we're coming up on 5 minutes here now. So let me go ahead and start on. Friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's get into this article here. All right, so the Spectacular Spider-Man lead says, I guess it's lead actor, says Disney actively worked against the series after buying Marvel. Quote, they made it hard to get an audience, unquote, article by Spencer McCulley published earlier today. While fans of the Spectacular Spider-Man have long lamented the fact that the absolutely incredible animated series was brought to an undeserving and premature end, they can now take at least a little bit of solace in the fact that per series lead voice actor Josh Keaton himself, Josh Keaton, who also, of course, did I believe Green Lantern in the Green Lantern series from a few years ago here. Its cancellation had nothing to do with the ratings and everything to do with Disney's corporate greed. Keaton, who in addition to the series incarnation version of Peter Parker, has also served such notable roles as Hal Jordan Green Lantern, the animated series, that's what I was just talking about, Revolver Ocelot in Metal Gear Solid 3, and Hercules in Disney's animated series of the same name, offered his insight into the Spectacular Spider-Man's final fate during a recent appearance on the Tuned In with Jim Cummings podcast, as hosted by the eponymous voice actor. Jim Cummings, of course, known for over the years for doing many voices, particularly for Disney. I believe he voiced Winnie the Pooh. He did Dingo in the Gargoyles animated series. So, anyways, looking back on his time behind the mask, Keaton was at one point asked by the show's producer, Chris Judge, not to be confused with the God of War voice actor of the same name, Christopher Judge. And yes, I know that there is a Canadian voice actor named Christopher Judge. Not only did he do God of War, but I think that Christopher Judge also voiced Magneto in X-Men Evolution, if I remember correctly. As to, in smaller quotes, or in quotes, how many years did that show in brackets last, unquote, to which he recalled, quote, I mean, we got cut short because that was right around the time that Disney was going to buy Marvel, unquote. Quote, so we did a season. It was critically acclaimed. It was getting great ratings, unquote, said the voice behind Marvel Rivals, multi-universe hopping Iron Man. Quote, and then we were doing season 2, and while we were recording season 2, that was when Disney bought Marvel. And they basically never canceled us and never picked us up. They just never said anything, unquote. In adding insult to injury, Keaton then revealed that at one point, quote, they told us, in smaller quote, you're going to be headlining our new network Disney XD, unquote, unsmaller quote. But then when they put us on Disney XD, they showed the episodes out of order. They kept changing the times that it was going to air. They never really did any promotion. They made it hard to get an audience, unquote. Yeah, that does sound like deliberate sabotage to me. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing this thing. See if we get some more friendly people to engage and be appreciated. Also, anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let me see. All right. Anyways, as we continue on here. Quote, also, we went from being on network TV on Kids WB to a network that really, at the time, was only on, like, Dish Network, unquote. He told his host, quote, if you didn't have Dish Network, you didn't have Disney XD. It was really obscure, so very obscure, unquote. Drawing his thoughts on the Spectacular Spider-Man to a close, Keaton took a moment to address the circumstances surrounding a possible series revival. Though sadly, rather than a glimmer of hope, the voice actor could only admit that such a return for Petey and his amazing friends was unlikely due to Disney's unwillingness to put the fans first and share even a small portion of the potential profit pie with Sony. Hmm. Quote, people are always asking me, could it ever come back? Unquote, said the Spider-Man voice actor to the man who, interestingly enough, provided the voice of Shocker in 1994's, yeah, there's another one, Spider-Man, the animated series. That was back in the 90s. Yeah, that's right. He provided. Um, Quote, the thing is that Disney now owns the rights to the character of Spider-Man for TV. But Sony still owns the rights to the show The Spectacular Spider-Man. So if Disney wanted to continue making it, they would have to basically pay Sony to license the show so they could keep making it. Why would they do that? They're like, quote, we can just make our own show, unquote, which they ultimately did in the form of 2012's Drake Bell-led Ultimate Spider-Man, unquote. From there, asked by Judge, quote, they never released, in brackets, Spectacular Spider-Man on Disney Plus either, right? Unquote. Keaton affirmed, quote, they briefly did right when Across the Spider-Verse, in brackets, which itself features a spoken cameo from his version of the wall crawler, unbracketed, was going to come out. They had it on there, unquote, but not without also speculating, quote, I think that the reason they even put it on there is that Netflix put it on there, unquote. His theory aside, Keaton closed out his time on the topic by reflecting on the series' subsequent performance with viewers. Quote, Sony put it on Netflix, and this show that had been absent from media for all these years was like trending number one on Netflix, unquote. he said. Quote, it did amazing on Netflix. It brought a whole new generation of kids into the spectacular Spider-Man, unquote. Quote, and then when that happened, Disney put it on Disney XD, but they still had the season finale and another thing out of order. End quote. Concluded Keaton. Quote, they still never fixed it, and so they had it on there out of order. And then once the movie was out of theaters, it disappeared again. It's been Parker luck one time, one thing after the other. All right, so there we go with that one. That was really the only article I was going to do tonight. Let's see. Let me see if there. I guess maybe I should see if there's anything else we could probably know. Maybe. I guess I'm looking for that. Looking for something else to go over. Maybe we'll find something. I don't know. La 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 la. La 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 la. Itchy, itchy, scratchy, scratchy. Ooh, I got one on my backy. La 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 la. Hmm. Catalog of characters. Okay. Here's something that might be of some interest here. Let's see, 20 minutes. Yeah, This should give us at least, hopefully, about 10 minutes of content here. Yeah, this should. Yeah, I think we will go ahead. All right, so here we go. So I found another article to go over here. Do this one here. From the from MeTV Tunes, a catalog of characters on Top Cat. He's a chief, he's a king, but above everything, he's the most tip-top Top Cat. Article published May 29th by MeTV Tunes staff. So this is I guess a look at the for those of you who may not know, remember, Top Cat was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon that was produced for primetime television back, I believe it was in 1961, around the time the Flintstones. So let's go ahead and get into this. So he's the coolest kitty in the big city. But did you know that Top Cat was based on another show? Started off as a parody of the Phil Silver Show, aka Sergeant Bilko. The show follows soldiers from Port Baxter as they get caught up in get-rich-quick schemes. Sound familiar? Joe Barbera, co-creator of Top Cat, said the show was a brilliant example of comedy in television, quote unquote, and fresh off of the hit of the Flintstones, wanted to try a cartoon where the humor was more irreverent and sophisticated. Hanna-Barbera also pulled inspiration from the East Side Kids movies, which follow a gang of fast-talking fast-talking juvenile delinquents. Between these two creative works, Hanna-Barbera drew up a gang of smart aleck street cats who love get-rich-quick schemes and messing with local law enforcement. Yep. Let's take a look at all of the characters from Top Cat and learn some fun facts about these cats. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's get into this. All right, so Benny the Ball. Benny is Top Cat's right-hand cat, but he also is the only character with a direct connection with the Phil Silver Show. Maurice Godfeld voiced Benny and also played Private Dwayne Doberman. The cartoonist even modeled Benny's appearance after Godfeld. So I guess the guy who voiced Benny, Maurice Godfeld, that's what that's kind of what he looked like, kind of short and round and all that, I guess. Top Cat. He's the boss or chief to his fellow alley cats, but you can call him Top Cat or TC. Actor Arnold Stang was the voice of Top Cat, and for the first few episodes deliberately did an impression of Phil Silvers. Now, Arnold Stang, that was not, of course, his first rodeo in terms of voice acting. Arnold Stang, aside from Top Cat, also is well known for being the longtime voice of Herman from the Herman and Catnip shorts for Famous Studios back in the 40s and 50s. So Arnold Stang was, so Top Cat and Herman from Herman and Catnip were essentially probably the two most famous characters that he voiced. Supposedly, the sponsor of the cartoon asked him to stop the impression and stick to his own voice, which was also recognizable from his work in radio and commercials, as well as I said previously, as Herman from, Herman and Catnip fame from Famous Studios, from Harvey Tunes. Officer Dibble. Officer Dibble is the long-suffering police officer whose main job is to deal with Top Cat and his friends. The character was likely inspired by Officer Pay O'Day of East Side Kids, an officer who grew up in the tenements and tries to reform the street children. Dibble was voiced by Alan Jenkins, who also played a police officer in I Love Lucy. Now, granted, a lot of these voice actors, now Arnold Stang probably thus far the only one we've seen who was actually somebody who was did some previous voice work. But I think some of the other, some of the more supporting cats members were voiced by some pretty well-known VAs. But here we go. Choo Choo, the pink cat. Choo Choo, while not having a direct character reference to East Side Kids or Phil Silvers, is a core member of Top Cat's gang. He's sensitive and flamboyant, but anxious and insecure, especially when it comes to dating. Top Cat happily steps in to be Choo Choo's wingman in episodes like Choo Choo's Romance and Choo Choo Goes Gaga. But Choo Choo lacks in emotional strength, he makes up for it in pure muscle, being able to knock cats off their feet with one punch or push a car uphill by himself. Muscle, look at that, pink muscle cat there. Brain. Not to be confused with the little mouse Brain from Pinky and the Brain, but this is Brain the cat from Top Cat. Every cartoon needs a slightly negative character to bring the story back down to earth. Winnie the Pooh has Eeyore, SpongeBob has Squidward, and Top Cat has Brain. Deadpan, slow, and always tired. Brain's in charge of the group's money, when they have money. He also does not have a direct reference character. Meaning he wasn't based on a character from Phil Rivers or East Side Kids. Fancy! When Fancy isn't in the alley with the boys, he is usually off charming the ladies. His fun fact is that his voice actor, John Stevenson, longtime well-known voice actor, has done a number of voices over the years, including, of course, Mr. Slate in the Flintstones. He did a number of voices for Transformers, including like Huffer, Windcharger, I think Thundercracker. I think he was Dr. Doom in the Fantastic Four 90s cartoon. So he's been around quite a bit. So let's see. Appears in a number of cartoons, including the Flintstones, Wacky Races, Johnny Quest, and many more. Yeah, that's as I was saying there. Spook. Spook is another quiet, more reserved member of the Alley Cat gang. Out of all the cats, he is the least focused on girls and the most focused on music and playing the bongo drums. He is voiced by Leo De Leon, who also provided the voice of Brain. So, again, Top Cat not having as many well-known voice, at least those in the voice acting community. But, Arnold Stang, John Stevenson thus far. Griswold is a police dog enlisted to get the cats out of the alley. Voice actor Don Messick reportedly used the laugh he created for Griswold later on for Muttley in Wacky Races. Of course, Don Messick has done a number of dog characters, and Griswold, Muttley, and Wacky Races. He was, of course, also the longtime voice of Scooby-Doo before he passed on in 1989. I think he even did Scrappy-Doo for a while there. Among some of the other voices Don Messick is known for include, of course, Ranger Smith and Boo Boo and Yogi Bear. Ratchet Scavenger and Transformers, among others. So, Lola Glamour. Lola Glamour is a socialite cat who appears in one episode, Choo Choo Goes Gaga, where Choo Choo thinks he's falling in love with a glamorous lady, but it turns out she knows him from attending third grade together. Based on the voice used by actress Jean Vanderpil, Lola is likely inspired by Zsa Zsa Gabor. Jean Vanderpil, another longtime voice actress known for much of her work with Hanna-Barbera, most notably, of course, Wilma Flintstone in the Flintstones, Rosie the Robot in the Jetsons. Let's see, Ma Rug from the Hillbilly Bears. Winnie the Witch in Winsome Witch. Let's see. I think she may have also been Granny in Precious Pup as well. I don't know if that was her or Janet Walder. Actually, that was Janet Walder, I think. Never mind. So. Jazz. A.T. Jazz, short for All That Jazz, is a rival of Top Cat who tries to turn the group against him. Jazz also turns Dibble against Top Cat by get this, cleaning up the alley. Voiced by the legendary Dawes Butler. Of course, Dawes Butler we talked about several times here. The voice of Yogi Bear, the voice of many Hanna-Barbera characters, including Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, Huckleberry Hound. Let's see. Yeah, those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head, obviously. So, we continue on here. Watch Top Cat on MeTV Tunes Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Central, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, and Sundays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Central, and 2:30 Pacific. All right, so there we go with that one. We had a time 34 minutes, so good. We got to the point where I was hoping to there. Alrighty then. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna move on to the wrestling wrap up. We're gonna look back to last night's AEW Dynamite. Talk about that as this is the first Dynamite coming off, of course, of the Double or Nothing pay-per-view from this past Sunday. Of course, the show opened up with with Adam Pearce coming out to give a promo following his win of the his win in the Owen Hart Cup tournament, and basically basically making his claim that he's gonna take the AEW title back from Jon Moxley in July. This of course led to Swerve Strickland coming out to confront him with their issues coming, kind of boiling to the surface again, only for Will Ospreay to come out and try to play peacemaker, only for that to fall flat. So that's a story that people will be needing to pay attention to. Of course, also during the show, of course, saw Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné confront one another on their with Moné winning the Owen Hart tournament, in preparation for their upcoming match at All In as well. Match-wise, of course, the opening match of the night saw a mixed six-man tag match, which the Death Riders John Moxley and Marina Shafir and associate Gabe Kidd defeating Speedball Mike Bailey, Mark Briscoe, and Will Nightingale by referee's decision when John Moxley put out Mark Briscoe with the Bulldog choke. In a no disqualification tag team match, Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford got a measure of revenge on Harley Cameron and Anna Jay, who defeated them on the pre-show on Sunday, at Sunday's double countdown to Double or Nothing. Another thing that happened. So of course, in the earlier match, in the mixed six-man tag, of course, Claudio Castagnoli came out to try to interfere, only for Commander to come out, setting, in preparation for their upcoming match on Collision this week. In a non-title six-man tag match, the World Trios champions, the Ops of Powerhouse Hobbs, Katsuya Shibata, and Samoa Joe, defeated the Frat House trio of Griff Garrison, Cole Carter, and Preston Vance, who of course had Jack Jameson, in just over 12 minutes. Adam Cole had successfully retained the TNT title via disqualification over Kyle Fletcher when numerous members of the Don Callis family so initially it started out with RPG Vice of Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero coming out to interfere, only for Adam Cole's Paragon teammates Roderick Strong and Kyle Riley to come out and chase them off. And then the direct disqualification came when Josh Alexander came out and went after Cole during the match, and landing the disqualification. And this, of course, led into the main event of the evening, in which the first of three qualifying matches for the Fatal 4-Way coming up next week on Dynamite for the AEW International Champion, as Kenny Omega will be defending the international title. Next week at Fyter Fest, in which Brody King defeated Josh Alexander to advance into that match. So, and one other little thing that happened on last night's Dynamite as well. Former Stardom star Thekla made her AEW debut, attacking Jamie Hayter in a segment in which Hayter was originally going to be talking about her loss to Mercedes Moné in the Owen Hart Cup and what's next for her, only for the lights to go out for Thekla to ambush her and make her presence known in AEW. And they did, of course. Hey, Fitzozo, thanks for popping in. Haven't already, if you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Awesome. Anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that, now looking ahead to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. Tonight's Impact from the CAA Center in Brampton, Ontario, with Matthew Ringwald and Tom Hannafan on commentary. We'll see Raj Singh challenge Mustafa Ali in singles action. Ash by Elegance will take on Lei Yingling. Ash by Elegance coming off of her and Heather by Elegance coming off of their Knockouts tag team title win. Mance Warner takes on Bryce Hansen in a number one contendership four-way match for the TNA World Tag Team titles. It's set to be Laredo. Now, I think it was originally supposed to be Laredo and his tag team partner Octagon Jr., the Aztec Warriors, but it's set here to be Laredo taking on the Rascals of Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, the Systems, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers, and First Class is AJ Francis and Casey Navarro, to see who would be the number one contenders to the TNA World Tag Team titles. Robert Stone and Victoria Crawford are set to take on Ariana Grace and Santino Marella, with, of course, Alicia Edwards and Tessa Blanchard in Stone and Crawford's corner. And then the main event, we'll see Steve Macklin defending the TNA International title against Matt Cardona, who won the right to it. I believe it was on last week's Impact. So that's all going down on tonight's Impact. Now, look ahead to tonight's Ring of Honor Club. Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. From Lance Archer set to take on Aaron Solo on the show. La Catalina set to take on Trish Adora, who will, of course, have the infantry in her corner. And then in the main event, the tag team match will be Hologram and Rhino taking on two members of the Frat House of Griff Garrison and Cole Carter. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap-up tonight. So now with that being said, let's take a look. So with today being Thursday, May 29th, 2025, let's take a look back at this day in each history. History! 2020 and 2010. All right. So first off, I'm going to head back to 1997. On this date in 1997, the 735th issue of Action Comics went on sale on this date back in 1997. Sold for $1.95 with 32 pages. The story was Deadly Deliverance. Written by David Michelin. Penciled by Tom Grummett. Inked by Dennis Rio Deer, lettered by Bill Oakley, and then Glenn Whitmore did the coloring. So on this date, back in 1997, which was, of course, 28 years ago, the 735th issue of Action Comics went on sale on this date back in 1997. Now moving ahead, of course, to the year 2000, 25 years ago today. As on this date in the year 2000, WCW held its Monday Night Raw event from the E Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. The main event saw Jeff Jarrett defeat Ric Flair for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship with David Flair, Ric's son, being the special guest referee. In a match that saw earlier in the evening, Ric Flair being rewarded the WCW World Heavyweight title. This was a match where I believe David Flair ended up betraying his father. Let's see. In an asylum match, United States champion Scott Steiner retained over the franchise in a match for the WCW Hardcore Championship that ended in a no contest, in which Terry Funk took on Vampiro. In a 2-on-1 handicap match, Rick Steiner and Tank Abbott defeated Kevin Nash by a DQ. And G.I. Bro defeated Mike Awesome in a ambulance match, in which, of course, the idea was to send your opponent out of the arena, basically to put him in an ambulance, send him out of the arena. And then the night opened up with Lieutenant Loco of the Misfits in Action defeating Disco Inferno, representing let's see. Oh, I don't remember what their team name was now, but that was all happened 25 years ago. WCW held its Monday Nitro from the E Center in Salt Lake City. Now moving on to the next piece of niche history as we move ahead to the year 2010. Move to the year 2010. On this year, in the year 2010, Production IG and Z-Beck's Broken Blade premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2010. So 15 years ago today, Production IG's and Z-Beck's Broken Blade premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2010, 15 years ago. And finally, on this date in 2020, just 5 years ago today, premiering on Apple TV, Central Park, which was a musical animated sitcom from the creators of Bob's Burgers, premiered on Apple TV on this date 5 years ago today. So 20th century television, 20th television animations, Central Park premiered on this date back in 2020. So with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Back here tomorrow with more Niche News. Of course, this Sunday, we'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane, going over comics that went on sale in in May of 1940, Prize Comics. I'll have Rick Piper joining me from Gross Comics. With that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.